Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the stars through the main screen. The ship was huge, bigger than any warship humanity had ever built before. It was their newest and most powerful vessel, with weapons and technology that other species could only dream about. Chen was a small woman with dark hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had been chosen to command this ship because she thought differently than other captains. While most officers followed the rules, Chen found new ways to win battles that nobody expected. "Captain," called Lieutenant Park from the communications station. "We're getting a distress signal." Chen turned toward him. "Put it through." The main screen flickered, showing a grainy image of a man in a research station uniform. His face was covered in blood and smoke filled the air behind him. "This is Research Station Kepler 442, he said, his voice shaking. "We're under attack by hegemony forces. They have over 200 ships. We need immediate help. Please, if anyone can hear this." The signal cut to static. Chen's jaw tightened. The hegemony was humanity's biggest enemy. They were a group of alien species that wanted to control the entire galaxy. They had been at war with humans for 5 years now, and they were winning. "How far to Kepler 442? Chen asked. 6 hours. At maximum jump speed, replied her navigation officer. "Sir," said Commander Rodriguez, her second in command, "we're just one ship. If they really have 200 vessels, we can't help. We should call for backup." Chen looked at the static-filled screen. She knew Rodriguez was right. One ship against 200 was suicide. But those people needed help now, not in 3 days when backup could arrive. "No," she said. "We go now. Prepare for jump." The crew looked at each other with worry, but they followed orders. They had learned to trust their captain's strange decisions. Chen had never lost a battle, even when the odds looked impossible. The Indomitable jumped through space, moving faster than light toward the Kepler 442 system. During the 6-hour journey, Chen studied everything they knew about the research station. It was small, with only 50 people working on new shield technology. The hegemony must have wanted that technology badly to send such a large fleet. "Captain," Park called out as they approached the system. "I'm not detecting any distress signals anymore. And no sign of battle," added the sensor officer. "Everything looks quiet." Chen frowned. "Too quiet." "Take us out of jump. Full sensor sweep." The Indomitable dropped back into normal space at the edge of the system. Immediately, alarms started blaring across the bridge. "Contact," shouted the GIW sensor officer. 212 enemy ships in formation around the research station. On the main screen, Chen saw them. Hegemony warships filled the space around where the research station should be. But there was no station anymore, just floating debris. The distress call had been sent hours ago, maybe even days. The people there were already dead. "It's a trap," Rodriguez said quietly. Chen nodded. The hegemony had used the research station as bait, hoping to catch human ships that came to help. They had been waiting for someone like her to show up. A new signal came through the communication system. This time it showed an alien face on the screen. The creature had gray skin, 4 eyes, and a mouth full of sharp teeth. Chen recognized him from intelligence reports. Admiral Vexthul, one of the hegemony's most dangerous commanders. "Human ship," Vexthul said in his harsh voice. "You have walked into our trap perfectly. I am Admiral Vexthul of the 3rd Fleet. You are completely surrounded by 212 warships. Your single vessel, no matter how advanced, cannot fight us all." Chen stepped forward so the alien could see her clearly. "Admiral Vexthul, I'm Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth, vessel Indomitable." "Ah, the famous Captain Chen," Vexthul said with what might have been a smile. "The one who never follows orders. The one who thinks she is smarter than everyone else. Today you will learn that human arrogance has limits." "What do you want?" Chen asked. "Your surrender, of course. Your ship is the most advanced in the human fleet. Our scientists are very interested in studying its technology. Surrender now, and your crew will be treated as prisoners of war. Refuse, and we will destroy you." Chen looked around her bridge. Her crew was waiting for her decision. They all knew the odds. 200 ships against one was not a battle. It was execution. But Chen had not become humanity's youngest captain by following safe choices. She had won battles by doing things that seemed impossible. Today would be no different. "Admiral," she said calmly, "I have a counteroffer for you." Vex Thul's 4 eyes blinked in surprise. "A counteroffer? You are in no position to negotiate." "Human," Chen smiled, and it was not a friendly smile. "Here's my offer. You and your fleet can leave the system right now. If you do that, I'll let you keep your ships." The alien admiral stared at her for a long moment. Then he began to laugh, a sound like broken glass. "You humans truly are insane. 1 ship against 200 and you threaten me? Very well, Captain. Chen, we will teach you why the hegemony rules the galaxy." The communication ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Rodriguez stepped beside his captain. "Sir, they're powering up weapons. All ships are moving into attack formation." Chen walked to her command chair and sat down. Around her, the crew prepared for battle. Weapons were charged, shields were raised, and damage control teams took their positions. "Captain," Park said quietly, "are we really going to fight them all?" Chen looked at the tactical display. 212 enemy ships were spreading out in a perfect sphere around the Indomitable. It was a classic hegemony formation, designed to hit the target from every direction at once. No ship had ever survived such an attack. "Yes," she said. "We're going to fight them all, and we're going to win." Her crew looked at her like she had lost her mind. Maybe she had. But Chen had learned something during her years of fighting the hegemony. The aliens were predictable. They followed the same tactics, used the same formations, and thought the same way every time. Humans were different. Humans were unpredictable, creative, and willing to try things that seemed impossible. Today, she would show the galaxy what that meant. "All stations, prepare for combat," she ordered. "And remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting to show every species in the galaxy that humans don't back down." The Indomitable hung alone in space, surrounded by enemies. In a few moments, the battle would begin. It would be a battle that legends were made of, one way or another. Outside, the hegemony fleet began to close in, ready to destroy the single human ship that dared to challenge them. They had no idea what they were about to face. The first attack came like thunder. 200 enemy ships fired at once, filling space with deadly energy beams and missiles. The Indomitable shook as its shields took hit after hit. Warning lights flashed red across the bridge, and the sound of alarms filled the air. "Shields down to 70%, reported the defense officer. Chen gripped her chair as another wave of attacks struck the ship. The hegemony was using their standard tactic, overwhelming firepower from all sides. It worked against most enemies, but Chen was not most enemies. "Helm," she called out. "Activate the probability drive." The helmsman looked confused. "Sir, the probability drive is still experimental. We don't know if—" "Do it," Chen ordered. The probability drive was humanity's newest invention. It allowed a ship to jump tiny distances instantly, appearing and disappearing faster than enemy sensors could track. Most captains were afraid to use it because it was dangerous and unpredictable. Chen was not most captains. The Indomitable suddenly vanished from where it had been, appearing 3 kilometers away in less than a second. The hegemony weapons that had been aimed at that spot hit empty space instead. "Again," Chen said. "Random pattern." The ship jumped again, this time appearing above the enemy formation. Then below, then to the side. Each jump happened so fast that the alien ships couldn't adjust their aim in time. "They can't hit us if they don't know where we'll be," Chen explained to her confused crew. Admiral Vexithul's angry voice came over the communication system. "Stop running, human coward! Stand and fight!" Chen almost laughed. The alien didn't understand. Humans had been fighting larger enemies for thousands of years. They had learned that sometimes the best way to win was not to fight fair. "Weapons," she called to Lieutenant Park. "Target their command ship. Full power." "Sir, they're too far away. Our weapons can't reach." "Trust me," Chen said. The Indomitable jumped again, this time appearing right next to Admiral Vexthul's massive flagship. The alien crew had no time to react before human weapons tore through their shields and hull. The flagship spun away, damaged and smoking. "Impossible," Vexthul snarled over the communication. How did you? His signal cut off as his ship lost power. But the victory was small. There were still over 200 enemy ships, and they were adapting to the human tactics. The hegemony commanders began spreading their ships farther apart, making it harder for the Indomitable to appear close to them. Captain, Rodriguez said, we can't keep this up forever. Each jump uses enormous power. Our engines will overload. Chen nodded. She had known this would happen. The probability drive was powerful, but it came with a cost. She needed a different plan. Chief Rodriguez, she said. How much power can you give me? The chief engineer looked at his console. Normal power, or do you want me to break some rules? Chen smiled. Break all the rules. Rodriguez grinned and started pushing buttons. You got it, Captain. Shutting. Down life support to non-essential decks. Redirecting power from backup systems. Turning off artificial gravity and cargo holds. Around the ship, lights dimmed as power flowed to the weapons and engines. The Indomitable might not be comfortable anymore, but it would hit harder and move faster than ever before. Weapons Officer Park, Chen said. I want you to do something that's never been tried before. Park looked nervous. What do you need, Captain? I want you to fire at 12 different targets at the same time. Park's eyes went wide. Captain, that's impossible. Our targeting computer can't handle that many calculations at once. Then don't use the targeting computer, Chen said. Use the ship's main AI. The ship's artificial intelligence was normally used for navigation and system management. No one had ever tried to use it for weapons targeting. It was another one of Chen's crazy ideas that might not work. AI, Chen said aloud. Can you calculate firing solutions for 12 targets simultaneously? The ship's computer voice answered. Calculating. Yes, Captain. I can process 12 targeting solutions with 97% accuracy. Do it. The Indomitable jumped into the middle of the enemy formation. Before the aliens could react, it fired 12 different weapons at 12 different ships. Missiles, energy beams, and plasma bolts flew in all directions. 12 enemy ships exploded or were severely damaged in seconds. The hegemony fleet was in chaos. Their perfect formation was broken. Ships collided with each other, trying to avoid the unpredictable human vessel. Some aliens fired at their own allies by mistake. This is madness, one alien captain said over an open channel. How can one ship fight like this? Because we're human, Chen said, making sure her voice was broadcast to all enemy ships. We don't fight like you expect. We don't follow your rules, and we never give up. Another group of enemy ships tried to surround the Indomitable, but Chen was ready for them. She ordered the ship to jump in a pattern that brought it behind each enemy vessel in turn. One by one, the alien ships were destroyed by attacks from their blind spots. Captain, the sensor officer called out. Enemy fleet is down to 180 ships, but our shields are failing. We can't take many more hits. Chen looked at the tactical display. They had destroyed or damaged 32 enemy ships, but there were still too many left. The Indomitable was strong, but not strong enough to fight the entire hegemony Third Fleet alone. Or was it? Chen had an idea. It was dangerous, maybe even suicidal, but it might work. All stations, she announced. Prepare for Pattern Omega. The bridge went silent. Pattern Omega was a theoretical battle plan that existed only in training simulations. No captain had ever been crazy enough to try it in real combat. Sir, Rodriguez said quietly. Pattern Omega has never been tested. The computer simulations show only a 15% chance of success. Chen stood up from her command chair. Then we'll have to be in that 15%, because if we don't try it, our chance of survival is 0%. She looked around, at her crew. They were afraid, but they trusted her. They had followed her into this impossible battle, and they would follow her to the end. Pattern Omega requires every person on this ship to do their job perfectly, Chen said. No mistakes, no hesitation. We get one chance at this. The crew nodded and turned to their stations. Whatever Pattern Omega was, they would make it work. Outside, the hegemony fleet was closing in again. ready to finish off the damaged human ship. Admiral Vexthul's flagship had restored power and was leading the attack personally. They had no idea that the real battle was about to begin. Pattern Omega began with something the aliens had never seen before: controlled chaos. Chen ordered the Indomitable to stop jumping randomly and instead move in a specific pattern through the enemy fleet. To the hegemony, it looked like the human ship was finally making a mistake, flying straight into their trap. They were wrong. Now, Chen said calmly. The Indomitable fired a spread of missiles, but not at enemy ships. Instead, the missiles exploded in empty space, creating huge clouds of metal fragments and electromagnetic interference. Within seconds, the hegemony sensors were blinded. "They can't see us clearly anymore," reported the sensor officer. "But we can't see them either." "Yes, we can," Chen said. "We know where they are because we know how they think." She was right. The hegemony always used the same battle formations. Their ships moved in predictable patterns following ancient military doctrine that had worked for thousands of years against other alien species. But humans studied their enemies. They learned their habits and used them as weapons. "Helm, take us to position 7 Alpha, Chen ordered. The helmsman looked at his screen. "Sir, according to sensors, there's nothing at position 7 Alpha. Trust the plan," Chen said. The Indomitable moved through the metal clouds toward the empty coordinate. Suddenly, a massive hegemony battleship appeared through the interference, exactly where Chen had predicted it would be. The alien crew had no time to react. Human weapons struck their ship before they even knew the enemy was there. The battleship exploded in a brilliant flash of light. "How did you know?" Rodriguez asked in amazement. "Because Admiral Vexthul always puts his heavy battleships in a defensive screen around his flagship," Chen explained. "Position 7 Alpha is where the second battleship should be if they're following standard formation." She was already planning the next move. "Take us to position 12 Delta." Again, they found exactly what Chen expected: another enemy. Ship in exactly the position their doctrine required. And again, the alien crew was caught completely by surprise. This was what made humans dangerous in space combat. Other species relied on superior firepower and advanced technology. Humans relied on understanding their enemies better than the enemies understood themselves. "Captain," Lieutenant Park called from the weapons station. "I'm detecting something strange. Some of the enemy ships are firing at each other." Chen smiled. This was the part of the plan she was most proud of. "It's working. Deploy the ghost torpedoes." The ghost torpedoes were another human invention that no other species understood. They weren't real weapons at all. They were just sensor signals designed to look like incoming missiles on enemy screens. To the hegemony ships, it looked like they were being attacked by torpedoes from multiple directions. In the confusion created by the metal clouds, they couldn't tell which signals were real and which were fake. So they did what their training told them to do. They fired at everything that looked dangerous, including their own allies. "Enemy formation is breaking apart," reported the tactical officer. 17 ships have been damaged or destroyed by friendly fire. Chen nodded. This was why humans won battles even when they were outnumbered. They didn't just fight with weapons and shields. They fought with psychology and deception. "Dr. Yoshi," Chen called to the ship's medical officer. "You've been studying hegemony tactics. Do you see any other weaknesses we can exploit?" Dr. Yoshi had been analyzing enemy communication signals throughout the battle. As a doctor, she was trained to notice patterns and diagnose problems. Chen had asked her to do the same thing with enemy behavior. "Actually, yes," Dr. Yoshi said, looking up from her console. "I've been listening to their radio chatter. The hegemony ships all use the same shield frequency to avoid interfering with each other." "And," Chen prompted, "if we match that frequency, exactly, our weapons should pass right through their shields like they weren't there." Chen's eyes lit up. "Can you calculate the frequency?" "Already done," Dr. Yoshi said, sending the data to the weapons station. "Park, adjust all weapons to match that shield frequency." "Done, Captain." The Indomitable emerged from the metal clouds and fired a full spread of weapons at the nearest group of enemy ships. The aliens watched in horror as human energy beams passed through their shields without slowing down. 5 ships were destroyed instantly. Impossible! Admiral Vexthul's voice screamed over the communication system. How are you penetrating our shields? Because you all use the same frequency, Chen replied. It makes you predictable. She turned to her crew. This is what happens when an entire species thinks exactly the same way. They become vulnerable to anyone who thinks differently. The hegemony fleet was in complete chaos now. Their formation was broken, their sensors were jammed, and their shields were useless against human weapons. Ships were firing in all directions, hitting friends and enemies alike. But Chen wasn't finished yet. All stations prepare for the butterfly maneuver, she ordered. The butterfly maneuver was something Chen had invented during the war. It involved using the probability drive in a specific pattern that made one ship look like dozens of ships on enemy sensors. The Indomitable began jumping in rapid sequence, forward, back, left, right, up, down. Each jump left a sensor ghost that looked like a real ship to enemy equipment. Within minutes, the hegemony thought they were facing an entire human fleet instead of just one ship. All ships, concentrate fire on the human vessels, Vexthul ordered. His ships obeyed, firing at every sensor contact they could see. But most of those contacts weren't real. The aliens were wasting ammunition shooting at empty space while the real Indomitable picked them off one by one. Enemy fleet now down to 120 ships, reported the tactical officer. Chen felt a moment of satisfaction. They had destroyed almost half the hegemony fleet using nothing but human cleverness and creativity. But she knew the hardest part was still coming. Captain, Rodriguez said, the probability drive is overheating. We can't keep jumping much longer. And our weapons are down to 60% ammunition, Park added. Chen nodded. She had expected this. The Indomitable was powerful, but it wasn't magic. Eventually, they would run out of tricks. Dr. Yoshi, she said, any other weaknesses you've noticed? The doctor studied her readings. There's something odd about their communication system. All their orders are coming from Admiral Vexthul's flagship. If something happened to that ship, the whole fleet would lose coordination, Chen finished. They'd be fighting as individual ships instead of as a unified force. She looked at the tactical display. Vexthul's flagship was at the center of the remaining enemy formation, protected by dozens of other ships. Getting close enough to destroy it would be almost impossible. Almost. Chen smiled as a new idea formed in her mind. It was her most dangerous plan yet, but if it worked, it would end the battle in one decisive strike. All stations, she announced. Prepare for Operation Longshot. We're going to try something that's never been done before. The crew looked at each other nervously. Every time their captain said those words, they ended up doing something that military textbooks said was impossible. Outside, the remaining hegemony ships were regrouping, preparing for one final assault on the human vessel. They thought they had the Indomitable trapped. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Admiral Vexthul had seen enough. His perfect trap had turned into a disaster, and he was not going to let one human ship destroy his entire fleet. All ships, he broadcast to his remaining vessels. Forget formations. Forget tactics. Converge on the human ship and destroy it at all costs. 120 hegemony warships abandoned their careful positioning and rushed toward the Indomitable like a swarm of angry insects. They fired everything they had: energy weapons, missiles, plasma cannons, and experimental devices that most species had never seen before. The Indomitable shook violently as the massive attack struck its shields. This time, there was nowhere to hide, and no clever trick that could deflect so much firepower. Shields failing, shouted the defense officer. Hull breach on Deck 7. We're losing atmosphere. Damage control teams to Deck 7, Chen ordered calmly, even as her ship was being torn apart around her. Red emergency lights flashed across the bridge. The smell of smoke filled the air as electrical systems overloaded. Through the main screen, Chen could see enemy ships getting closer and closer, preparing to finish off the wounded human vessel. Captain, Rodriguez said, his voice tight with worry. We can't take much more of this. Maybe we should consider— No, Chen cut him off. We don't surrender. Not today. Another wave of enemy fire struck the ship. This time the lights went out completely for several seconds before emergency power kicked in. Weapons down to 30%, Park reported, and we're almost out of ammunition. Probability drive is critical, added the helmsman. One more overload and it will shut down completely. Chen looked around her damaged bridge. Half her crew was injured, her ship was falling apart, and they were still facing over 100 enemy vessels. By any reasonable measure, they had already lost. But Captain Sarah Chen had never been reasonable. Chief Rodriguez, she said, remember what you told me about the probability drive when we first installed it? Rodriguez looked confused. Sir? You said it was dangerous because it could theoretically create multiple quantum states simultaneously. You said if we overloaded it, the ship might exist in several different realities at the same time. Rodriguez's eyes went wide. Captain, you can't be thinking of... I am, Chen said. How long would we have before the quantum effect collapsed? Maybe 60 seconds, Rodriguez said. But Captain, the stress on the ship's hull would be enormous. We might tear apart at the molecular level. Chen stood up from her command chair. Around her, the bridge shook as more enemy weapons found their target. Ladies and gentlemen, she announced to her crew, what I'm about to order you to do has never been attempted before. It will probably kill us all. But if it works, we'll win this battle and show the galaxy that humans never give up. She paused, looking at each member of her crew. They were afraid, but they were also determined. They had followed her this far, and they would follow her to the end. I need everyone to do their job perfectly for the next 60 seconds. No mistakes. No hesitation. Can you do that? The crew nodded, even though they didn't fully understand what was about to happen. Chief Rodriguez, Chen ordered. Overload the probability drive. Maximum power. Rodriguez hesitated for just a moment, then pushed a series of buttons on his console. Probability drive overloading. Warning systems are going crazy. Captain, this is... His words were lost as reality began to change around them. The Indomitable started to flicker like a broken video screen. One moment it was solid and real, the next it was translucent like a ghost. The ship's hull began to exist in multiple quantum states at the same time. To the hegemony fleet, it looked like the human ship had suddenly multiplied. They saw dozens of Indomitables appearing and disappearing throughout their formation. Each quantum echo looked completely real on their sensors. What is happening? Vexthul screamed over the communication system. How many ships are there? The answer was both one and many. The Indomitable existed in multiple probability streams simultaneously, appearing in dozens of locations at once while still being the same single vessel. Chen felt the ship shudder as quantum forces tried to tear it apart. The bridge flickered between different versions of reality. In some realities, they were already destroyed. In others, they had won the battle. In this reality, they were still fighting. Fire at will, Chen ordered. All quantum echoes engage. Targets. The multiple versions of the Indomitable opened fire at the same time. From the enemy's perspective, they were being attacked by an entire human fleet. Energy beams and missiles came from every direction at once. Hegemony ships exploded throughout their formation as quantum weapons struck them. The aliens couldn't tell which attacks were real and which were just probability shadows, so they had to treat every threat as genuine. Impossible readings, one alien captain shouted over the radio. The human ship is everywhere at once. Focus fire on the real one, Vexthul ordered desperately. Which one is real? Another captain replied. They were all real. They were all fake. The quantum overload had made the Indomitable exist in a state where normal rules no longer applied, but Chen knew they couldn't maintain this for long. She could feel the ship starting to tear itself apart, as different quantum states pulled it in different directions. 40 seconds until quantum collapse, Rodriguez warned, his voice strained. Around the bridge, crew members were bleeding from the quantum stress. The ship's hull was developing cracks that appeared and disappeared as reality shifted. Chen focused on the tactical display, watching as enemy ships were destroyed by quantum fire. The hegemony formation was completely broken now, with vessels spinning away in all directions. 20 seconds, Rodriguez called out. Chen saw her chance. In one of the quantum states, a clear path had opened to Admiral Vexithul's flagship. She could reach it, but only in that one specific reality. All power to weapons, she ordered. Target the flagship. Everything we have left. The multiple versions of the Indomitable converged on Vex Thul's massive command ship. In several quantum states, they fired simultaneously. The flagship's shields couldn't handle attacks from multiple realities at once. They collapsed instantly, and human weapons tore through the alien vessel's hull. 10 seconds to collapse. Vex Thul's flagship began to break apart, its command center exposed to space. The Admiral himself was visible through the torn hull, his 4 eyes wide with disbelief. 5 seconds. Chen grabbed her chair as the quantum effect began to collapse. Reality was snapping back together, and all the different probability streams were merging into one. 3, 2, 1. The flickering stopped. The multiple images vanished. The Indomitable became solid and real again, hanging alone in space among the wreckage of the hegemony fleet. But the ship had paid a price for its quantum assault. Hull plates were missing, entire sections were dark, and atmosphere was leaking from dozens of breaches. Status report, Chen said weakly, blood running down her face from a cut on her forehead. 57 enemy ships destroyed during the quantum phase, Park reported, his voice filled with amazement. Total enemy casualties now at 149 ships. Chen looked at the main screen. Where once there had been over 200 hegemony vessels, now only 63 remained. And those were scattered, damaged, and demoralized. Admiral, Vex Thul's flagship was drifting powerless, its command section completely destroyed. But the battle wasn't over yet. The silence that followed the quantum collapse was broken only by the emergency alarm still sounding throughout the Indomitable. Smoke drifted across the bridge as damaged systems sparked and failed. Chen wiped blood from her eyes and looked at the tactical display. 63 enemy ships remained, but they were no longer attacking. They hung in space like lost children, their perfect formation destroyed, their command structure broken. Captain, the communication officer said quietly, we're receiving a signal from one of the remaining hegemony ships. Put it through. The main screen flickered to life, showing an alien face Chen didn't recognize. This wasn't Admiral Vex Thul. It was a younger officer with fear in his multiple eyes. Human ship, the alien said, his voice shaking. I am Captain Thexmore of the cruiser Vengeance. Admiral Vex Thul is... Admiral Vex Thul's flagship has been destroyed. I am now the senior surviving officer. Chen studied the alien's face. She could see the shock and confusion there. The hegemony had never lost a battle like this. They didn't know what to do. What do you want, Captain Thexmore? Chen asked. We request terms of surrender. The bridge of the Indomitable went completely quiet. After hours of desperate fighting, after facing impossible odds, the enemy was giving up. Chen stood up slowly. Her ship was barely holding together. Her crew was exhausted and wounded, and they had used almost every trick in the book. But they had won. You want to surrender? She asked. Yes, Thexmore said. Your ship is unlike anything we have ever faced. We cannot defeat you. Chen looked around her bridge. Her crew was listening to every word. What she said next would be remembered for as long as humans traveled the stars. Captain Thexmore, she said clearly, you came here to destroy a research station full of innocent people. You set a trap using their deaths as bait. You brought over 200 ships to capture one human vessel. She paused, letting her words sink in. You wanted to learn what makes humans dangerous. Today's lesson is simple. We don't know when to quit. Chen turned to her weapons officer. Park, are any of our guns still working? 3 energy cannons and 1 missile launcher, Captain. That's all. Good enough. Chen looked back at the alien. Captain, here are my terms, Thexmore. You and your surviving ships will leave this system immediately. You will report to your superiors that the human research station has been avenged, and you will tell them that Earth is not afraid of the hegemony. But, the alien protested, you are just 1 ship. We still outnumber you. Do you? Chen interrupted. Look around you, Captain. Count your ships, then count mine. Thexmore's eyes widened as he understood. Yes, he had 63 ships left. But that one human ship had already destroyed nearly 200 of his allies. What could it do to the rest of them? We accept your terms, he said quickly. Smart choice, Chen replied. Oh, and Captain, take Admiral Vexthal with you. He's still alive in the wreckage of his flagship. The communication ended, leaving the bridge of the Indomitable in silence once again. Within an hour, the surviving hegemony ships had collected their wounded and jumped away, leaving the humans alone with the debris of their victory. The Battle of Kepler 442 was over. Captain, Rodriguez said, looking at his damage reports, we need to get to a shipyard immediately. The ship is held together mostly by hope and emergency patches, Chen nodded. Set course for Earth. Best possible speed. As the Indomitable limped away from the battle site, Chen walked to each station on the bridge, checking on her crew. They were all wounded, all exhausted, but they were alive. And they had achieved something that would be talked about for generations. Sir, Lieutenant Park said as she reached his station. What we did today, is it really possible? Did we actually defeat over 200 ships? Chen smiled. Park, 3 days ago, would you have believed that one ship could use quantum mechanics to exist in multiple realities simultaneously? No, sir. Then remember this lesson. Humans specialize in doing things that seem impossible. It's what makes us who we are. The journey back to Earth took 6 days. During that time, news of the battle spread throughout the galaxy faster than their damaged ship could travel. By the time they reached Earth orbit, the Indomitable was already famous. Every news service in human space was talking about Captain Chen and her impossible victory. But more importantly, alien governments were talking too. The hegemony had been the most feared military force in the galaxy for 1,000 years. The fact that one human ship had destroyed most of their third fleet sent shockwaves through every alien species. Some species that had been allied with the hegemony began to reconsider their positions. Others that had been neutral started to think that maybe humans weren't such easy targets after all. Chen was called to Earth Command immediately after her ship docked at the orbital shipyard. She expected to be congratulated for her victory. Instead, she found herself facing a room full of admirals who looked very serious. Captain Chen, said Admiral Harrison, the head of Earth Defense Forces. What you did at Kepler 442 was either brilliant or completely insane. Maybe both, sir, Chen replied. Do you realize what you've started? Every alien government in the galaxy is now reassessing their relationship with humanity. Some of them are scared of us for the first time in history. Chen thought about that. Is that a bad thing, sir? Admiral Harrison almost smiled. No, Captain, it's not. For the first time since this war began, our enemies are afraid of us instead of the other way around. He stood up and walked to a large screen showing star maps of the galaxy. The hegemony is already pulling back from 3 border systems. The collective has requested peace negotiations, and the Trade Federation wants to discuss a military alliance. All because of one battle? Chen asked. All because you showed them that humans can't be predicted or controlled, Harrison replied. You fought a battle that no alien species could have won, using tactics that no alien could have conceived. He turned back to face her. Captain, I'm promoting you to Admiral, and I'm giving you command of the new Experimental Tactics Division. Your job will be to develop new ways of fighting that our enemies can't counter. Chen nodded. What about my crew, sir? They're all getting promotions, too. Anyone who can help one ship defeat 200 deserves recognition. As Chen left the meeting, she thought about her crew and the impossible thing they had accomplished. Together, Lieutenant Park would become a commander, learning to use artificial intelligence in ways no one had imagined. Chief Rodriguez would head the new quantum engineering department, making the probability drive safe enough for other ships to use. Dr. Yoshi would become the military's first xenological warfare specialist, studying alien psychology to find new weaknesses. But the most important result of the Battle of Kepler 442 wasn't the promotions or the strategic victories. It was the message it sent to every human in the galaxy. When the news reached the outer colonies, human settlers who had been hiding from alien raiders suddenly felt brave enough to fight back. When it reached the front lines, human soldiers stopped retreating and started advancing. When it reached Earth itself, children played games where they pretended to be Captain Chen, defeating impossible odds through cleverness and courage. The story spread beyond humanity, too. Across the galaxy, other species began to tell tales of the human ship that could be in many places at once, of the captain who thought like no one else, of the crew that refused to surrender no matter how bad things looked. Some aliens told the story as a warning. Never underestimate humans. They don't fight like anyone else. Others told it as a legend. There once was a ship called the Indomitable, and its captain proved that sometimes one is enough to beat many. But humans told the story differently. To them, it wasn't about one special ship or one brilliant captain. It was about what any human could accomplish when they refused to give up, when they used their creativity instead of just their weapons, when they worked together toward an impossible goal. The Battle of Kepler 442 became the moment when humanity stopped being the underdog in the Galactic War. It was the moment when other species learned that humans were not just another alien race to be conquered. They were something new, something unpredictable, something dangerous, and they were just getting started. Years later, when Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of her new flagship, watching human and alien ships working together to explore new star systems, she would remember that day when everything changed. She would remember the choice between surrender and fighting impossible odds. She would remember that sometimes, one human warship really could take on a whole fleet and still win. Not because humans were stronger or had better technology, but because they had something no other species possessed, the absolute refusal to accept that anything was truly impossible. That was humanity's greatest weapon, and the galaxy was still learning to fear it.